Okay, so we've installed the Orion Platform. Things are running, it's collecting the data and metrics, and it's consuming the data, and it's presenting dashboards and all the Belgian whistles.
Wait, did you just say Belgian whistles?
Yes, but don't worry about that right now. Let's focus on what happens next. We want to help them understand what steps to take immediately after the install is complete.
Okay, I like to do this by breaking things down into two groups. Tasks internal to the Orion Platform database and tasks external to the Orion Platform database.
Yeah, that's a great way to divide and think about those tasks, because those are sometimes two very different groups or people.
True, but we do have a large number of accidental DBAs out there that end up doing all the tasks. Still, it's helpful to think of these tasks as internal and external. So let's talk about the tasks that Orion will do itself internally and the tasks that need to be done externally.
You mean by an experienced enterprise class DBA?
Well, if you have one of those around, sure. Otherwise, you'll do.
Okay, good. Let's break them down. First up, the external tasks. And the most important one of those, database backups.
Yeah, you're going to want those at some point in time. Get it?
Yeah, I got it. And you're right, those backups become important because they are needed for your recovery plan. You can't have a recovery plan unless you have a backup. And as a DBA, if you can't recover, you can't keep your job. So you are going to want to make sure that those backups are being done, and this is for all the associated databases that you may have.
Yep, and the Orion Platform may have more than one database, depending upon what products you have installed. You're going to want to make certain that your backups are actually taking place.
So if you have a DBA or a server team member that's already in charge of the backups, you want to verify with them that these databases have been added to whatever backup process is currently in place. And if you're the accidental DBA and you need to do this for yourself, you're going to want to configure probably a maintenance plan inside of SQL Server Management Studio.
And one caveat about this is to make an effort to avoid having the backups taking place during or even near the same time as the internal maintenance.
Okay, so let's shift to those internal tasks. So what tasks are really handled by Orion itself?
Orion does a bunch of work itself. There's no need to have these configured externally. The Orion Platform will do this out of the box, but you can configure the timing of the maintenance. Okay, so let's just take a look.
All right. Okay, so the standard stuff that most DBAs would configure in the maintenance plan, things like rebuilding indexes, updating statistics, backing up a database, those are things that, Orion can do some of those things, like just out of the box, but there's some extra stuff that Orion's going to do for you, which is why we recommend that you use the internal maintenance.
Yes, because the same place you set the timing for the maintenance to run is also where you configure retention. And we've already talked about the role retention plays for performance. And the KB article doesn't list the details, but here's what the Orion internal maintenance does for you. One, it will clean up the orphan nodes that you have there.
Important, yep.
And it will prune, archive, and roll up data according to retention settings.
Yep, mention that.
And it will update statistics for tables and indexes.
Right.
And it will rebuild and organize indexes as needed.
Okay, so let's show them where it is.
All right, so we're in the settings page and we're going to scroll down to the actual polling settings, because that's of course where your database is going to be.
Well, of course, naturally, when I looked at the screen and I wanted to know where the database maintenance tasks would be, I thought to myself, polling settings.
Exactly. And so if you scroll past those polling settings, that is where you're going to see your actual database settings and the things of which we were talking about.
It was actually almost above the fold if you have a big enough screen.
Correct. And so the archive time is, as you can see out of the box, is at 2:15 a.m. And then the checkbox is for the index defragmentation. Now, if you're an upgrade person, you may want to come in here and make sure that you have that checked, because if it wasn't there before in the database, it might not be there. Just a good place to see to make sure that you are doing those statistics and index updates. That's
now, archive time, though, to me, archive would mean something more like a backup. But what does archive really mean to the user here?
This is when it's going to perform all the tasks that you see here. So that's your roll-up tasks, your indexing, your pruning of your nodes, things of that nature. The four that we were just listing, this is when that starts.
Yeah, so pruning nodes isn't listed here, but that gets done.
Correct, yes, because that's done on the back side of there. So any of your orphan nodes that are within your database, that is how you prune them correctly out of the database.
Okay, and so what else is happening on the screen for us?
So you can see that you have your database retention settings that are set up there. So you have your hourly or your detailed, your hourly, and your daily. So if you have things such as compliance reports that you have to keep detailed information to check out anomalies, or if you're applying patches and you need to make sure you verify the information for more than 7 days, this is where you're going to increase it.
Okay, what's this interface baseline calculation?
So that is when it gets done for the baseline. That is a load on your database, so that's what we offer you. Do you want to do it every day or just, certain days and times? Because remember, the time for all of these starts at 2:15. The more accumulation or the more that you have in your database, the longer this can take as well to be completed. As we see here, indexing is for 3,600 seconds, which is about an hour. But it can go up to 50,000, which is 14 hours.
14 hours of index maintenance.
I mean, is that a problem?
I'm not going to say it's a problem. I'm just going to say yes. So 14 hours, if you have to wait 14 hours for your index jobs, defragmentation to get done, then you really got to look at what your retention settings are, how many elements you're really monitoring for. Down here, the biggest ones, right? syslog and trap messages. You see their default to 3 days. So, here's where you would come in and start making some changes and see if you can change, because likely if indexes are taking that long, it's because of the size of the database. So the first thing you look at is not, hey, can I just truncate some tables? It's, what am I retaining? And how long and can I really make some adjustments here? So a lot of the database maintenance stuff happens here. And as the Orion administrator, this is where you really want to do a lot of those internal tasks.
Definitely.
If the DBA insists on doing index rebuilds or whatever, you have to let them know that Orion itself is going to be doing a lot of tasks, all right? And you've set it up at 2:15. You also want to coordinate with the DBAs though, because you want all of this to happen, and then you probably want to have a backup done. And the reason you want to do that is if you ever have to roll back to that point in time, you don't want to wait for all this maintenance to have to happen again, right? So consider this your end of day. At 2:15, this will run. You should have an idea of how long it would take, and then you should be able to say, all right, DBAs, or whoever's doing the backups, could you start my backups at around, say, 4 a.m., or whatever the time would be? Because then for you, that would be a nice, clean way, if you ever had to restore, place to start. You wouldn't have to redo your maintenance, right? And I think this is a really good way for people to understand you don't want to overlap those two functions. The DBA really wants to do the index maintenance. Trust me, we do. We want to do the index maintenance, and we want to update your stats, and we want to do all the backups, and we want to control all of that simply because we want to make sure it's getting done. And if somebody comes to us and says, hey, was this done? I need to have a list of it, and I only have a list of it if I'm the one doing it. So it's important to have that communication so that the Orion administrator says, no, don't worry about the index stuff. We're supposed to be doing that internally. If we have performance problems, then we'll have to go and look at it together later. But I don't want you to have a duplication of efforts in your environment, having people trying to do the same tasks essentially twice in one night.
That makes complete sense.